Hello. It's my pleasure to be virtually with you today and to present this talk about PD-L1 TILS TMB in breast cancer for immunotherapy and beyond. This is my disclosures. The biomarker we use in immunotherapy are very different from the traditional genetic driver alteration because they are involving tumor and environment. They are dynamic and inducible. We measure them as expression range or magnitude, and they are, for instance, TILs, immune cells, composite biomarkers that is different from an amplification or a mutation. So we are going to start with the clinically validated biomarker with PD-L1. In breast cancer, PD-L1 is expressed on tumor cells, but it's very much expressed in immune cells. And there are interaction between those different cells, tumor cells and immune cells for the immune response. That's why in breast cancer, we will focus more on PD-L1 on immune cells than in other subtypes, such as, for instance, lung cancer. The overexpression of PD-L1 in breast cancer is known for a long time as a poor prognosis factor. And in PD-L1, we can have also an activation, a copy number variation of the gene PD-L1 that could be a potential biomarker of response to durvalumab in metastatic breast cancer, as we showed in the SAPHIR-2 clinical trial in France. So where do we stand for PD-L1 detection in 2021? Subset data from different clinical trials of metastatic triple-negative breast cancer in patient 130, KEYNOTE 355, showed that tumors with significant PD-L1 expression had a clear benefit from checkpoint inhibitors, which means that we have to figure out how to best test those tumors. In early triple-negative breast cancer, the situation is completely different. PD-L1 status doesn't seem relevant for the selection of patients for neoadjuvant treatment with checkpoint inhibitors, like in the phase 3 in patient 041 or KEYNOTE 522, which means that we have to figure out how to best select other biomarkers, TILs, dynamic biomarker, composite biomarker. Then it's complicated because we have several PD-L1 immunohistochemistry tests that has been validated in different clinical trials with different drugs, and they are provided by different companies, Dako or Ventana mainly, and the scoring system are different, the technology are different, and they have to be run on different automats. So you can see here the several antibodies and the scoring system, immune cells, TC cells, CPS, IC, ICS. So those scoring systems take into account either only the tumor cells, but we don't use that in breast cancer anymore, or a combination of tumor cell and immune cells. This is a CPS, or the immune cells positive areas on the tumor cell area. This is the immune cell score that is used with Atezo. Are those antibodies interchangeable for the pathologist? So we have experience from lung cancer showing that some of the tests could be interchangeable, and some of them are completely different. And in the lung, as we look on tumor cells, it's SP132 that is underperforming, and this 7310 that is overperforming when you compare to the other one. So in lung, we have a certain level of interchangeability. There was a study recently published from the German group looking at a comparison of different immunohistochemistry PD-L1 scoring in triple-negative breast cancer. It was on 30 resection specimen, and the gold standard was considered the Ventana SP142. what we showed is that, in fact, the the SP263 was not performing exactly the same, was giving more positive cases, where the SP142, 22C3, and 2288 were reproducible and analytically concordant. So this study suggests that looking at those different antibodies, some of them could be interchangeable. But it's better to look in clinical trials. And in clinical trials, we have data from inpatient 130. In this clinical trial, the SP142 was used with a cutoff value of 1%, and it was showing around 40% of breast cancer. In a subpopulation of the trial, they were able to look at other antibodies, and they looked at 22C3 and SP263 with different cutoff. They showed that with the two other antibodies, they had more positive cases. They almost doubled the number of positive cases. So it was very interesting in terms of eligibility, potential eligibility to immunotherapy in metastatic triple negative breast cancer. But it was very disappointing because, in fact, only the cases that were positive with SP142 plus the other antibody, in fact, benefited from atezo plus nab-paclitaxel, as you can see on the top curves, where the patients that were only positive with the new antibody or double negative didn't benefit. And it was exactly the same result with 22C3 or SP263. Then they tried to go further and to see maybe we can use other antibodies, because those other antibodies are used either on other machine or already in other tumor types like lung cancer, but we look at another scoring system. So they try to see what would be the best cutoff value instead of using 1%. So they found CPS 10 for 22C3 and IC 4% for SP263, having the best results. But in fact, it was also very disappointing because the clinical benefit was only for the cases that were positive with SP142. So despite an optimized scoring system, neither 22C3 nor SP263 can substitute to SP142 for eligibility to atezo plus nab-paclitaxel. So this shows that in the clinical trial with atezolizumab, in fact, the eligibility has to be performed with the antibody SP142 and using the score of immune cells superior or equal to 1%. In the keynote 355, the antibody was the 22C3 from Dako using CPS score, and the patient with a CPS superior or equal to 10% were the patient who benefited the more from the treatment, and it was what was probably will be retained for the authorization. And it's around it's the same population, 40%, as with the inpatient 130. But in real world, and that's why we are trying to do harmonization studies, the use of laboratory developed tests is the choice for a majority of pathologists. And they use the antibody that we mentioned, but also other antibodies that we can buy concentrated and dilute, so it's less expensive. And they don't need to have several automats, Ventana, Dako, for instance. It's logistical, financial. There is tissue preservation, not to use several different antibodies. And in fact, they don't have much data showing that they cannot use different antibodies. So right now, with PD-L1 in breast cancer, I have to say that we are in trouble, and that you as clinician, you have to be sure that your pathologist is using the good test. And if he cannot, because if the pathologist has not the good machine in the lab and has not the right machine, a Dako machine or a Ventana machine when it's needed, they should refer the test to another lab to be sure that the right test is performed for the patient. So we have several issues with PD-L1, and pathologists and clinicians has to be educated. several assays and different antibodies are available for immunohistochemistry. In breast cancer, it's more immune cells. There is an absence of interchangeability among the different assays in patient 130. Confusing results from the German harmonization study. We have different scoring systems, but in clinical trial for metastatic triple negative breast cancer, we have around 40% of eligible patients. The most sensitive antibodies are not necessarily the most predictive. Antibodies have different specificities and do not stay exactly the same cells, and only comparative studies with correlation to clinical response will allow us to choose the best protocol for each indication. And it's really recommended to use CDX assays linked to the drugs. Then we move to TILs. Tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes are prognostic. When you look to them on H&E cells and doing a percentage, so the quantification, they are prognostic in triple negative and in HER2 positive breast cancer. It's less clear for ER negative for ER positive breast cancer, especially in neoadjuvant trial. And we know also that it's predictive for PCR in neoadjuvant setting. And it's predictive of PCR in phase 1B, Keynote 173, neoadjuvant pembrolizumab plus chemotherapy, and also in the NeoTRIP, neoadjuvant atezo plus chemotherapy, but not in phase 2 of, not in phase 3 neoadjuvant clinical trial, as I previously mentioned. We have published several guidelines, international guidelines, to train pathologists how to score lymphocytes. So it's something that could be very helpful as a biomarker for immunotherapy. Something that is also interesting is to look at what are those lymphocytes or immune cells, and we know that they are completely different in the different cancers. And you can see that you have different immune cells in breast as compared to melanoma or pancreatic cancer, for instance. But much more than, it's also different in the different subtypes of breast cancer. And we have more immunogenicity in basal as compared to luminal A breast cancer. And we know that this will have also an impact on the response to immunotherapy. So it's something that is important to look at. We can look also at the qualitative aspects of this immune component with molecular biology. And looking at the TCGA data with RNA-seq expression, we have 4 immune phenotypes, one being the immune signature, the ECR4. And this one has a better prognosis than the other one. Especially from the ECR1 that is the less immune activated. So those signatures could be also helpful for prognosis, but maybe also for the selection of the patient. Another thing that is important when we consider the lymphocytes is that we see a decrease in lymphocytic infiltration and in the activation of the lymphocytes during the progression of breast cancer. And we have a significantly reduced immune activating gene expression signatures and TILs in recurrent triple negative breast cancer. And this data may explain the observed lack of efficacy of immunotherapeutic agent in heavily pretreated triple negative breast cancer. So in conclusion for TILs, PD-L1 by immunohistochemistry is a companion test in metastatic triple negative breast cancer, but the level of response to first-line immunotherapy is still disappointing. The presence of TILs and immune signature doesn't seem to guarantee the existence of an immune response, which also requires the presence of immunogenic tumor-associated antigens and neoantigens to be efficient. The situation of early and metastatic breast cancer is different and varies also depending on the subtype of breast cancer. Research implies multiplex staining, localization, and spatial studies, and more biomarkers are required today in breast cancer. Among those biomarkers will be the spatial approach and the morphologic approach, because we know that how the lymphocytic infiltrate is present as a prognostic value, whether the tumor is hot with plenty of lymphocyte close to the tumor cells as opposed to the excluded when we only have immune cells on the periphery of the tumor, or if we have a desert, so very few immune cells. And then the type of immune cells that we have, pro-tumor or suppressor cells. And if you look here to this very complicated scheme, you can see that in the different morphological aspects, so immune desert, immune exclude tumor, or inflamed tumors, you have different expression of cytokines and of different molecules. And this probably is very important. And the macrophages are also important because some of them are immune suppressors and other are immune competent. So it's important also to distinguish the type of macrophages that we have. Beyond T cells, we have other expressions. Some are directly linked to the tumor, and we will see the TMB, but also the tumor burden and the expression of other genes. And some, of course, are linked to the host and to several lifestyle factors and the microbiome. Something that has come recently obvious is the importance of the clinical stage, tumor burden, LDH, and resistance to checkpoint inhibitors. A solid tumor microenvironment is T-cell hostile. And we have hypoxia, acidic pH, lack of nutrients, but send to the cell immunosuppressive signals. So high LDH levels are associated to poorer survival, and this has been shown in metastatic triple negative breast cancer with pembrolizumab in the KEYNOTE 086. A decrease in tumor burden after neoadjuvant trastuzumab in HER2 early breast cancer showed an increase in the TILs after 2 weeks. So you can cut those immunosuppressive signals, and a co-blockade of tumor driver could be very important in combination with checkpoint inhibitors. Then we have the tumor-associated biomarkers and the tumor mutational burden, the TMB. TMB is correlated with MMR-MSI, with POL-E mutation, the hypermutator phenotype, and with HRD, BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation, and other environmental factors, including tobacco and breast cancer subtypes. Only 11% of breast cancer harbor more than 10 mutations per megabase, and it's twofold higher in metastatic breast cancer than in early breast cancer, but it's not a very high TMB type tumor. The tumor mutation burden is a predictive biomarker for checkpoint inhibitor in breast cancer. It has been shown in some studies, and with no difference between ER positive and ER negative breast cancer, but it's a small series of patients, and the cutoff for high TMB in breast cancer is lower than in other tumor types, but it's significant. And in the KEYNOTE 119, it was shown that 10% of the tumors had a high TMB, and they showed a potential positive association between TMB and clinical benefit with pembro, but not with chemo in patients with metastatic triple negative breast cancer. And very surprisingly, it was shown in San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference 2020, not 21, that from FMI data, that invasive lobular carcinoma were the tumor with the highest TMB. Mismatch repair also is something that could be predictive of response to immunotherapy. In fact, up to 12% of breast cancer have a loss of at least one protein expression by immunohistochemistry, but only less than 4% of breast cancer harbor true microsatellite instability by molecular biology. It's independent of breast cancer subtype, independent of TMB, and more frequent in still high breast cancer, and those patients could be eligible to checkpoint inhibitors. Then, in fact, in inpatient 130, they showed that the clinical benefit derived from PD-L1 EC1 plus patient was completely independent of their BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation status. So it's not something that you can use to decide for immunotherapy in breast cancer. We have several other biomarkers that are linked to the tumor and to the host. BRCA mutation may be a canonical cancer pathway, immune-related pathway, the TMB. But something that is very important is the importance of clonality. And when we have a clonal heterogeneity, in fact, there is a lower response to checkpoint inhibitors. So we are moving to the composite biomarkers that can influence immunosurveillance. So among all the biomarkers, we have also to take into account the microbiome, the menopausal status, environmental factors, and plenty of other factors. So it will be extremely complicated, and we will need to have artificial intelligence to help us. And it will be important in the future to combine checkpoint inhibitor expression, so PD-L1 expression, immune infiltration, TILs, tumor antigen load, host factor like microbiome. And we need to gather data for artificial intelligence and consider also those variation in space and in time will be also very important. So maybe we will go to an immunogram of breast cancer. And I also believe a lot in nuclear imaging, and you have here an image of a TEP scan with the staining of PD-L1. They stain, in fact, atezolizumab, and you can see an heterogeneity in the different metastatic sites. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm ready for the question. Thank you so much.